Everybody, welcome back to our journey through John, our bite-sized conversations as we walk through the Gospel of John. Today we'll be continuing the story of the Samaritan woman at the well, and today we'll be reading verses 16 through 26, and so without further ado, let's jump right in. It says this in verse 16. Remember, he's right in the middle of this conversation with this woman talking about living water, and she's asking him questions about this. And so verse 16 says this: Jesus said to her, "Go call your husband and come here." The woman answered him, "I have no husband." And Jesus said to her, "You're right in saying, 'I have no husband,' for you have had 5 husbands, and the one you now have is not your husband. What you have said is true." The woman said to him, "Sir, I perceive that you're a prophet. Our fathers worshipped on this mountain, but you say that in Jerusalem is the place where people ought to worship." And Jesus said to her, "Believe me, the hour is coming when neither on this mountain nor in Jerusalem will you worship the Father. You worship what you do not know. We worship what we know, for salvation is from the Jews," because that's the line of the Messiah. Verse 23, "But the hour is coming and is now here when the true worshipers will worship the Father in spirit and in truth. For the Father is seeking such people to worship him." I love that the Father is seeking such worshipers. Verse 24, "God is spirit, and those who worship him must worship him in spirit and in truth." The woman said to him, "Well, I know the Messiah is coming, he who's called the Christ, and when he comes, he will tell us all things." And Jesus said to her, "I who speak to you am he." How fun is this? And there's so many pieces. This woman is saying, well, I know this, I know that. Even though I'm considered probably in some cases an outcast, that may be why she's at the well at noon. And so she's wrestling through this, but she has this great knowledge of how this is supposed to work in the Jewish customs and the Jewish tradition of faith, as well as the Samaritan tradition of faith. And she begins to bring this up, and then Jesus says, you mentioned the Messiah, and you put your trust in the fact that when the Messiah comes, he'll clear all this up. That's me. I'm right here at the well in the middle of Samaria talking to you, the woman with 5.5 husbands. How crazy is that? And then you look back to some of the other conversations we've had in John, in the earlier chapters, where Jesus said that where it says that Jesus did not entrust himself to them, but yet he entrusts himself to this Samaritan woman who's had 5 husbands and is with a 6th person. How crazy is that? There's so many pieces that I love about this, but Jesus drops this huge bomb. And the fact that he knew that this woman trusted the Messiah, trusted that he would be the one, and that he's the one that's going to clear up all this stuff. And Jesus entrusted who he was to her, this woman at the well. And I love the questions that she had. I love that she challenged. I love that she was, well, but there's this and there's that and there's all these other things going on. And it's so amazing that this woman is at this crisis point. And she knew that she needed something. She knew that she needed more than just a water from a well. And Jesus, of course, knew that. And he comes and he brings to her the truth, the magnitude of who he truly is. And what she does with it in the next day is amazing. We'll dig into that in just the next day or two. But how amazing is it that this woman, who's just Samaritan, a rejected woman, and rejected by the Samaritans even, a rejected of the rejects, is the one that Jesus comes and says, I'm the Messiah. I'm the one that has the answers. And you're going to worship God in spirit and in truth. It's not going to be over there or over there. It's going to be right here, and you're going to worship him. Because the work that he came to do, God is spirit. The work he came to do, now that we who follow him, we who believe, have the Spirit of God within us. And the same Spirit that raised Jesus from the dead is the Spirit that's within each and every one of us as believers. Powerful stuff. So a couple questions that come to mind, a couple things I'd like to wrestle through. Do we remember the time when we finally realized we had an encounter with Jesus? Just like this woman, maybe. Maybe we were in crisis. Maybe it was some time when we were a child in Sunday school. Sometimes I think it's wise for us to go back to those times and say, wow, look what he saved me from. Look at the grace that he extended. Look at the mercy. I'm a woman at the well, if you will. I'm at the well, and I'm in the midst of a crisis, and yet he sought me out and had a conversation with me and drew me into his family. Do you remember when he found you? And maybe you're here and for whatever reason you decide to listen in on this, and you're not someone that you say, well, I feel like I am found. I feel like I do know Jesus. I would encourage you to just take some time and pray and say, Jesus, I don't know you, but I want to know you. I do believe your work on the cross. I do believe that you are the one that is prophesied about. I believe that you gave your life so that I could have a relationship with you, and I want to accept you as my Savior. And if you were to pray something like that, I'd love to if you just give me a message or direct message me, and just have a conversation with you very briefly, just to talk to you about what that means. The last question is, do we know him and his salvation is available no matter who we are? This woman, like I said, by many people's standards was a reject of the rejects, and yet he came to her, he found her out. He knew she'd be at that well, and he sent his disciples away so he could have a free conversation with this woman and bring her into the kingdom and introduce her to the Messiah in the flesh. There's so much to think about there. I hope it challenges you. I hope it encourages you. And I hope to see you again tomorrow as we continue the journey through John.